You didn't choose this music, it ambushed you. A specific riff through a specific speaker, in a car, in a bedroom, at a party you almost didn't go to, and in the 4 seconds it took to reach the volume knob, something inside you had already decided, this is the one. That's how heavy metal worked. Not through persuasion. Not through an algorithm building a profile of your preferences and serving you something adjacent to what you already liked. It worked through impact. Pure, physical, you felt it in your chest impact. The kind that doesn't ask your opinion first. And if you were there, if you lived inside those years when a new album release meant standing outside a record store before it opened, when the smell of vinyl and cardboard sleeve was its own specific excitement that no streaming service has ever come close to replacing, then you know this music wasn't entertainment. It was identity. It told you who you were on the days you weren't sure. It held the weight of things you couldn't say out loud to another living person. It was the only completely honest thing in the room. But here's the question nobody stops to ask. Of every riff, every anthem, every track that filled arenas and broke records and refused to leave the airwaves across 4 full decades, which ones actually sold the most? Not which ones the critics elevated. Not which ones made the coolest poster on your bedroom wall. Which ones did real people go out and buy, in real numbers, repeatedly, in figures that still don't make complete sense when you look at them today? Some answers on this list will feel exactly right. A few will genuinely surprise you. And the song sitting at number 1 has accumulated a sales total so far beyond the competition that it doesn't just top this list, it makes everything else look like it's fighting for second place. Count starts now. Number 10. Scorpions. Rock You Like a Hurricane. 1984. That riff doesn't introduce itself. It arrives like a fist through a window. No warning, no invitation. Straight to the point. Rudolf Schenker built it with one purpose: to cause a physical reaction before your brain had time to form an opinion. The Scorpions had spent a decade trying to crack America from Hanover, Germany, and that geography mattered. 5 men from a country with no rock tradition, staring at a market flooded with homegrown options, pitching themselves as the alternative nobody asked for. Love at First Sting was the record where they stopped pitching and started demanding. The difference is audible in every single note. MTV put the video in heavy rotation. Radio followed, over 1 million certified US copies. But here's the number nobody mentions. It only peaked at 25 on the Billboard Hot 100. 25. The chart said one thing. The sales said something completely different. People weren't buying it because it charted. They were buying it because when it came on, their hand moved to the volume before a conscious decision had been made. This was the song that hit at the exact wrong moment and made everything feel like the right one. The stadium car park at midnight after the show. The freeway with no destination and no curfew. The moment when a night that had nowhere to go suddenly had somewhere very specific to go. Does this one still make you reach for the volume without even thinking? Europe had just sent America a lesson in how heavy metal was supposed to feel. And America had no response except to buy it. If that was the sound of a band forcing its way through a locked door, the next song is what it sounds like when a man decides, permanently, that he is done being underestimated. Number 9. Judas Priest. You've Got Another Thing Comin'. 1982. It sounds like a verdict being delivered. Not an argument, a verdict. The kind that ends the conversation entirely. By 1982, Judas Priest had been making music for over a decade. and the industry had a file on them. Cult act, metal purists, ceiling already reached. Rob Halford had spent years watching bands with a fraction of Priest musicianship get handed the commercial success that kept eluding them. Screaming for vengeance was the response, not angry, not messy. Precise. Halford delivered every syllable of that chorus like a man who had already won and was simply informing you of the result. Certified platinum. One of the most played hard rock songs in American radio history. Permanent fixture on every classic rock station that has ever broadcast a single note. But the numbers miss the real point. What this song actually did was walk into the lives of everyone who had ever been told their ceiling was lower than they believed, and told them, in the clearest possible terms, that the person who set that ceiling was wrong. This was never a late-night song. This was a before the battle song. The alarm sounds. Something difficult is ahead of you. You press play. By the time that chorus hits, you are a fundamentally different person than you were 60 seconds ago. That's not an accident. That's what Rob Halford built it to do. Do you still know every single word? Judas Priest didn't just make a great record. They handed every written-off, underestimated, counted-out person alive their permanent anthem, and it has never stopped working. From the sound of individual defiance, we move to something that operates at a completely different scale, something that needed 50,000 people in a room to be fully understood.
Before we continue, can I ask you for a small favor? There's something I honestly don't understand. Only about 10% of the people who watch pure nostalgia rock are actually subscribed. That means more than 90% of viewers enjoy the videos, listen to the music, relive the memories, and then leave without subscribing. And if I'm being honest, that can be a little heartbreaking, because these videos don't just appear. Every upload takes hours of research, fact-checking, script writing, editing, and preserving the stories behind the music we all love. We do all of that because these songs deserve to be remembered. So when thousands of people watch and enjoy the content, but only a few take a second to subscribe, it sometimes feels like the work is being appreciated, but the people behind it are being forgotten. If this channel has ever helped you rediscover a song, relive a memory, or simply made your day a little better, please take 1 second to subscribe. It's completely free, but it's the biggest way you can support what we do. Every subscription encourages us to keep going, keep creating, and keep preserving the music that means so much to all of us. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get back to the music.
Number 8. Iron Maiden. Run to the Hills. 1982. 40 years later. 2 seconds in. And you are not in the room anymore. That galloping bass line, Steve Harris's 2-part cavalry rhythm, does something neurological before your conscious mind catches up. The Number of the Beast was the first Maiden album with Bruce Dickinson on vocals, and this was the opening statement of that partnership. It charted at number 7 in the UK in 1982. Think about what that means. Heavy metal bands were not supposed to chart at number 7 in Britain. The gatekeepers had an arrangement about that. Maiden simply didn't attend the meeting. Over 1 million certified copies, but what no number can measure is what this song did inside arenas. There is a specific experience, one that exists at very few concerts in history, when 50,000 separate people stop being 50,000 separate people and become one single thing. One voice, one raised fist, one collective response to something they all feel simultaneously. Run to the Hills was one of the songs that reliably produced that moment. People who saw Maiden on the Beast tour describe it the same way. decades apart, without comparing notes. Something happened inside those rooms that you cannot manufacture and cannot explain to someone who wasn't there. Where were you the first time this one found you? Iron Maiden didn't ask permission to be one of the greatest live bands in rock history. They showed up, they played, and they made the argument impossible to dispute. From the arena and 50,000 voices, we take a sharp turn into something that broke every rule in the genre, and in doing so, rewrote what a guitar god was allowed to be. Number 7. Van Halen, Jump, 1984. The greatest guitarist alive picked up a synthesizer. The purists screamed. The song spent 5 weeks at number 1. Eddie Van Halen had been sitting on that keyboard riff since 1981. 3 years on a cassette tape in a drawer, untouched, waiting, because he understood the reaction it would generate. David Lee Roth wrote the full vocal melody and lyrics in one afternoon. They recorded it. The label expressed polite uncertainty. Then it hit the top of the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed for 5 weeks. The only Van Halen single to ever reach number 1. 3 million copies worldwide. A guitar god who had spent an entire decade being celebrated as the best in the world on 6 strings picks up a keyboard and produces the biggest commercial moment of his career. But here's what most people miss about this song. That lyric, "Might as well jump," wasn't written from a place of joy. Roth wrote it from a place of genuine recklessness. The song is about standing on a ledge, a decision, a relationship, a version of your life that's about to change completely, and choosing to leap before you're ready. That's a very different emotional territory than most people assign to it when they hear that synthesizer open up. It lived in the exact moment right before something shifted. The pause before you said yes. The second before you walked through the door you couldn't walk back through. Does it still give you that specific electricity, the feeling right before everything changes? Van Halen proved that genius doesn't obey category rules. And sometimes the most revolutionary thing an icon can do is completely surprise you. From the leap of faith, we land somewhere that should have collapsed and instead became one of the best-selling records in human history. Number 6. Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me, 1987. It starts delicate, almost quiet, and then Mutt Lange drops the wall. And you remember exactly where you were the first time that chorus detonated. New Year's Eve, 1984. Drummer Rick Allen loses his arm in a car accident. 22 years old. The industry standard response, the sensible, professional, everyone would understand response, was to find a replacement. Def Leppard didn't. They waited. They built a custom kit. Rick retaught himself the instrument from scratch, using one arm and both feet. Then they walked back into the studio with Mutt Lange, arguably the most obsessive, precision-obsessed producer in rock history, and spent 3 years building Hysteria, note by meticulous note. Pour Some Sugar on Me was written in the final sessions. Nearly an afterthought. Mutt heard the rough version and said it was a hit. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. 2 million certified copies. Hysteria itself went diamond, 10 million copies in the United States alone. The album the label had quietly begun losing faith in. The album built on a decision to wait for a man who refused to accept a version of himself that couldn't play anymore. This song scored the evenings with no official name. The ones where you were somewhere good, with people who mattered, and the night stretched out in front of you with no ceiling on it. Be honest, Does it hit differently now that you know what it cost to make? Def Leppard built a diamond out of patience and loss. The world bought it 10 million times. Mid-video retention. Refresh halfway through, and the songs still coming aren't just big. They're the ones that changed what was commercially possible for heavy metal as a genre. But the number attached to the song at number 1 sits in a category so far above everything else on this list that when we get there, I need you to just sit with it for a moment. Stay with me. Number 5, Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child O' Mine, 1988. Slash was warming up. That circular, descending guitar pattern. He was just stretching his fingers. Nothing serious. Duff McKagan heard it across the room and told him to keep going. Axl sat down and wrote the lyric in 15 minutes, thinking about his girlfriend at the time, treating it as practically nothing. Their only number 1 single. 2 weeks at the top of the Billboard Hot 100. Appetite for Destruction sold over 30 million copies worldwide. The best-selling debut album in the history of recorded music, and Sweet Child O' Mine sits at its center. An unplanned song, a warm-up exercise, a 15-minute lyric that expanded Guns N' Roses from a rock band certain people loved into a cultural event nobody could ignore, regardless of their existing relationship with the genre. The real genius is the contrast. Slash was the most visually dangerous guitarist of his generation. Axl had spent an entire album sounding like the streets of Los Angeles had formed themselves into a human being and learned to scream. And then they made something tender. Something that worked completely alone in a quiet room and worked completely in a stadium full of strangers. That range, from dangerous to genuinely vulnerable, without any visible effort, is extraordinarily rare in any genre at any time. Where were you the first time this one found you? Guns N' Roses wrote an accident. The accident sold 30 million copies. That is the complete story. From the song Nobody Planned, we go back further. To a night in Birmingham when 20 minutes of improvisation accidentally founded an entire genre. Number 4, Black Sabbath, Paranoid, 1970. The most important heavy metal song ever recorded was written as album filler in under 20 minutes. Stop and sit with that. Tony Iommi played the riff in 5 minutes. Geezer Butler wrote the lyric in 15. A raw, unfiltered observation about mental fog, disconnection, the crawling feeling that something is fundamentally wrong and you cannot locate the source of it. They recorded it immediately. No polish, no revision. The album needed more runtime. This was the solution. Nobody attached any particular significance to it. Over 2 million copies sold. One of the 5 most recognized guitar riffs in the history of recorded sound, and the foundational record of an entire genre. Without this riff, recorded on this night in this Birmingham rehearsal room, there is no Metallica, no Judas Priest breakthrough, no Iron Maiden charging the Billboard charts, no Megadeth, no Slayer, no Pantera. Every single band on this list owes a direct creative debt to an album filler Tony Iommi almost didn't bother finishing. Ozzy has said in multiple interviews that the speed at which this song arrived still genuinely disturbs him. As though it didn't come from the band at all, as though it came through them because something larger needed it to exist, and they simply happened to be in the room when it arrived. Does this one still feel like it's coming from somewhere further away than a recording studio? Black Sabbath threw a song away. The song refused to be thrown away, and it took the entire genre with it on the way back. From the foundation everything was built on. we arrive at the greatest act of defiance in rock history. A band with every reason to stop. A record that made stopping impossible. Number 3. A C/DC. Back in Black. 1980. The moment that bell tolls, you are not where you were sitting. You know this. You have been here before, and it never once gets smaller. Bon Scott died. February 19th, 1980. 33 years old. AC/DC had every justification in the world to close the chapter. Instead, within months, they found Brian Johnson, a man whose previous band had already dissolved, whose career the industry had largely written off. Walked back into the studio with Mutt Lange, stripped the production to its bare skeleton, and built something out of grief that sounds nothing like grief. It sounds like a declaration. Back in Black sold over 50 million copies worldwide. The second best-selling album in the history of recorded music, behind only Thriller. The title track moved over 3 million standalone single copies. These are not rock music numbers. These are numbers that belong in a different conversation about what music can accomplish when the people making it have something truly real at stake. Brian's lyrics were a tribute, but not soft, not sentimental. Defiant. We are still here. This is still happening. Not for a single second is this over. That is the energy in every note. It doesn't matter the context, the room, the time of day. When those chords land, something in you straightens up. Every single time. Do you still know every single word? AC/DC made the greatest comeback record in the history of rock music out of grief, loyalty, and the absolute refusal to let the story end there. From the greatest comeback, we arrive at the song built by a man the industry had already buried, alongside a guitarist the world barely knew, that outlived every single person who doubted it. Number 2. Ozzy Osbourne, Crazy Train, 1980. That opening is genuinely unhinged. The stuttering, descending guitar figure sounds like something coming apart at the seams, and then it locks with absolute precision into a riff so controlled and so powerful that the contrast between those two states tells you everything this song is actually about. Ozzy Osbourne was fired from Black Sabbath in 1979. Fired from the only identity he had ever known. Sharon Arden, who believed in what remained of him when the industry had already filed the chapter closed, found Randy Rhoads teaching guitar at his mother's music school in North Hollywood. Randy was 22 years old. His classical training and technical discipline had no precedent in hard rock. Nobody had brought those two disciplines together in this way. Nobody had even thought to try. 5 million certified copies. A permanent fixture at major sporting events worldwide for over 40 years. And a guitar performance that musicians still spend full careers attempting to fully understand. How someone that young played with that precise combination of academic control and raw, uncontained fire. It defies easy explanation. Randy Rhoads died in a plane crash in March 1982. He was 25 years old. He never stood in one of those stadiums. He never heard 50,000 people respond to something he played in a North Hollywood rehearsal room. He never knew. Does this one raise something in you that sits between loss and gratitude? Something you still can't fully name? Ozzy rebuilt himself from the complete wreckage of everything. He had lost, and what he built has outlasted every single person who said he was finished. And now, number 1. The song with a sales figure that doesn't compete with anything else on this list, because nothing else on this list is playing the same game. Number 1. Metallica, Enter Sandman, 1991. 3 seconds in, and you are somewhere specific. A room, a car, a stadium, a memory that belongs only to you. You have been here 1,000 times. It never once gets smaller. Kirk Hammett wrote that opening riff during a rehearsal run. The band built the Black Album around it, their self-titled 5th record, assembled over 14 months of sessions that were, by multiple accounts, the most intense and fractious of their career. James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich pushed against each other for over a year. Creative visions collided constantly. There were sessions that nearly didn't survive the room they were recorded in. What came out the other side was the best-selling heavy metal album in history. Metallica moved over 30 million copies worldwide. And Enter Sandman, its opening track, its engine, its face to the world, accumulated approximately 7 million copies in single sales across all formats. Read that again. $7 million. The next closest entries on this list are separated from that number by millions of copies. This song didn't win the race. It ran a different race in a different stadium on a different planet and lapped everything else 3 times. What Metallica did with this record was translate the language of heavy metal into something universal, without softening it, without making it smaller, without asking anyone to compromise what they already loved about the genre. People who had never once considered themselves metal fans heard this riff and quietly reconsidered everything they thought they knew. People who had been metal fans for 20 years heard it and felt the genre arrive somewhere they had always believed it could reach, but had never seen it actually get to. It worked alone at 3 a.m. with the volume low, and you could feel every inch of the darkness in it. It worked in a stadium at full volume with 60,000 people, and it felt like the whole world confirming something. It worked in a car with no destination, and it made the not knowing feel exactly right. Which song on this entire list still gives you chills every single time? No matter how many years have passed, drop it below. I read everyone. Metallica built the best-selling heavy metal song of all time out of tension and pressure and complete refusal to make anything less than something permanent. And it has never once apologized for how large it became. These songs weren't just on the radio. They were in the car on the night you drove home, knowing something had changed and not yet understanding what. They were on the headphones the morning after the thing that redefined your life, good or bad, when you needed something large enough to hold what you were feeling. They were playing when you looked around a room full of people and understood, without a single word being spoken, that everyone there felt exactly what you were feeling. Heavy metal took the weight of being alive, the rage, the grief, the recklessness, the specific and devastating joy of being young and untouchable, and completely convinced the moment would last, and it made that weight loud enough to carry together. And in doing that, it made sure that no one who loved it ever had to carry any of it alone. These songs are still here, still doing exactly what they were built to do. And so are you. Which one still gives you chills every single time? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.